I think so. Okay, it's time for Fun with Fintrack. Thank you so much for sticking around for Fun with Fintrack. I'm so pleased. Now, the brokerage has to have a copy of our Fintrack manual at all times available for you to peruse if required. This is kept in the admin office in this pretty binder. I have to update the cover because this is August 2015 and the new rules are effective. Well, they came up with a new one. It came out in April 2017. Most of the new changes for Fintrack are pointed at the brokerage. So the brokerage is really under the gun for a lot of the new Fintrack rules. Norm was the new Fintrack compliance officer. So one day he will, yeah, yeah. Now some of you might have noticed there's been some changes to the Fintrack IIIR form. So mostly what the government is concerned about is that we know who our clients are. And there's different ways of verifying our client information. For 99% of us, 99% of the time, photocopy of their driver's license is all you need to verify who they are.
Do you need a photocopy of it, or can you just see it, take the numbers, and expiry?
Kat?
I thought we couldn't take a copy.
Technically speaking, we are now required. Yes, but there's two sets of rules. So Fintrack also wait for it. Fintrack also wants us to make sure that our clients are financially capable of affording the homes that they are buying. True story. Fintrack wants real estate agents to be in the loop with financing and their ability to purchase. So before we used to say to clients, have you gone to a mortgage guy? Great, we're done. You know, what did they say? This much money? Great, we'll set up a search. But according to Fintrack, they want us to be more involved in that process. So they're coming at it from two different points of view, and it's only when we actually get audited that we will have to nod and say, yes, we're doing that. Because in reality, we aren't really.
So Fintrack is government-based.
Fintrack is feds. Yeah. Yeah.
So if we have to verify that people are capable of buying a home,
Mm-hmm.
how far can we go to ask them personal information?
How far ahead?
Do we ask them the information that the bank would ask them, or do we just say, did you go to your bank?
So that's a very good. That's a very good question, Joshua, and it's been interpreted in several different ways. This is a bit like, because this is new. It's new to Fintrack and it's new to real estate. And so it's like when you call 311. Have you ever called 311 and asked them a question? Yeah, and then you call them the next day and ask them the same question, and you get a different answer? Okay, so this is what Fintrack's doing right now. These rules came into effect in April, and they are still interpreting them. And so for the most part, do what you always do. Verify their information with a driver's license, take a picture, copy the information. After the transaction completes, you can destroy that picture. I don't know, right now Fintrack says you shouldn't. I think, but really we're not supposed to keep that information beyond the completion of the sale. So there's two sets of information here. I don't have the right answer. Joshua.
So you're already saying that we are supposed to take a picture of your driver's license in addition to copying what's on it?
You should absolutely need to be able to verify who they are and have a record of that in file until closing. At closing, we are supposed to destroy all personal information that we've collected on that transaction. Used to. So I would still do that. I would still, delete that information from your file at closing because that's what we're supposed to do. I'm just saying that for the most part, do what you've been doing before to verify your clients. However, if you need to verify your clients in a different way, there are now new different ways of doing that. So we're going to go through the slides. Okay. Yeah. Canada's anti-money laundering and terrorist financing regime stems from international obligations and standards developed by Financial Action Task Force. Canada is a member of the Financial Action Task Force and is evaluated for its adherence to the policies, including those developed to include the real estate sector. You are a real estate agent and you are acting on behalf of a broker. The requirements for you to report suspicious transactions and terrorist property. That's all you have to do. Verify who your clients are, and if they happen to mention they work for an international terrorist organization or that their property that you are purchasing is owned by an international terrorist organization or organized crime, you have to report that to us, and then we have to report that to Fintrack. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you were aware of that before, but now it's in writing. You really have to be on top of that. The brokerage has to take every transaction that we do and compare the addresses to known terrorist-owned properties. And every name has to be passed through a filter of known and recognized international terrorists. Every transaction. Oh yeah, we're on it. We're on it like this. No, yes, they do. And if you, we have access to a terrorist database. Yes? No, he's not a terrorist. Yeah. All right. Agents are required to ascertain the identity of clients at the time of the transaction. Completing a client information record fulfills this obligation. A property transacts at completion, so get this information in advance. If your client is a corporation, you have 30 days after the completion of the deal to get the rest of the information. You can still do it in advance. So starting just now, June 30th, agents must use one of these three methods to identify the individual. One of your handouts has more information about this. Using a single piece of government-issued photo identification and comparing it to the individual who must be present at the time. Verifying that the client's name, date of birth, and address match information obtained from a credit bureau that has been in existence for at least 3 years. This is referred to as, this is method 1, this is method 2. So if they don't have a photo ID that you can see, so if you're working with someone and they're not present, for instance, you can then you need to work with a credit bureau file. Credit bureau file has to be obtained by you. They cannot supply the credit bureau file. So you have to be the one that gets the credit bureau file, and it's only good for verification if it's been in existence for at least 3 years. So a new immigrant, sorry, that doesn't, you can't use the credit bureau version.
But if they have photo ID, you can use them.
Yeah, if they're, as long as they are present. Yeah, yeah.
How do you get the credit bureau file? I've never done that.
You have to have a relationship with a credit issuing company. So I've got one. Yeah, so they have to give you permission to do the search, and then you have to submit it. I use rentcheck.ca because I do a lot of leasing, but you can set it up with Equifax. I tried to set up a credit bureau checking thing with Equifax. There was a, no joke, 121-page survey I had to be like form I had to complete before they would give me the ability to use Equifax. Just, so it's like, forget it. Rent check was the way I do it. It cost me $25 ago. But that's the rules. They cannot provide the credit score, the credit check. You have to get it. So using 2 original valid and current documents or information from independent and reliable sources, the dual process method. Specifically, the agent must refer to documents information from the 2 following categories. Documents.
In what instance does the dual process apply?
If neither of the first 2 work. So documents or information from a reliable source that contain the client's name and date of birth. Example, Canada Revenue Notice of Assessment, Federal, Provincial, Territorial, and Municipal Benefit Statements, CPP Statements, Record of Employment, T4, Utility Bills. Documents or information from a reliable source that contain the client's name or address. Example, birth certificate, marriage certificate, divorce documentation. I've never seen a birth certificate with a client's name and address that was valid.
Maybe in Hawaii.
Yeah, maybe in Hawaii. Kenya. Documents or information that contain the client's name and confirms that they have a deposit, credit card, or other loan account with a financial entity.
Okay, so I'm sorry, so in that section, they don't have to have photos on, is that
That is correct. Most of those do not have photo information attached. So if they don't have the first two, you can still verify B or C categories. That verifies information. If you have never met these people and they're sending you information like from a bank statement, this would be no longer a low risk transaction. Anytime that you're purchasing property for someone that you have never met, it is not the low risk transaction. And so in those, even though you're not buying Osama bin Laden's summer house, you should still tell the brokerage that these clients are people I've never met, because the brokerage also has to assess the risk involved in processing a real estate transaction from clients that you don't have a personal relationship with. Now, it can still happen, like someone down in Florida, like Alice gives you a referral, and they want to buy up here, and you send them some listings, and you say, oh, okay, that one looks great, we'll buy it. You can use a third party to verify their information in the United States. And that's called an agent mandatory. And so Alice or whomever it was who gave you the referral from wherever could look at their personal information, their driver's license, and say, I have seen their information and I know these people. That is also not considered a low risk transaction. It would be a medium risk transaction. Okay, so other sources of information and more information are included in this link, and I printed that link out. So that.
How is the permanent residence card not an ID? It's got a photo on it.
It's probably in the list of documents. They didn't name it there.
That's a photo ID.
Yeah, they didn't name it there. So changes here, section 3.1.2.4 to the non-face-to-face identification. As you're no doubt aware, I love that. You're all hanging on every word that Fintrack has published. June 30th, 2017, if an agent is not dealing with an individual face-to-face and therefore cannot personally verify the individual's identity, an agent or mandatory can be used to fulfill the client information record obligation. So the PCMLTF, anybody? Okay. Never mind. It's just regime specifies that a combination of 2 of 5 designated methods may be used, but not a combination of method 1 and 2 or method 4 and 5. Are you aware that this is a government plan? Yes, you know now. So I'm not going to, so refer to an independent and reliable identification product. It must be based on personal information as well as Canadian credit history. Confirming after obtaining authorization from the person their name and address and date of birth by referring to a credit file. Obtain attestation of ID from a commissioner of oaths or guarantor. Confirm the check drawn or deposit account from a Canadian financial entity has cleared. Confirm existence of a deposit account from a Canadian financial entity. So they're just tightening this up a little. That's what they're doing. They're trying to, Canada has a terrible international reputation, to be honest, for laundering money through property. Yet they call it snow washing. Canada in general. Canada in general is a huge haven for international money showing up, somewhat dubious dark money, and buying property, and then that money becomes legitimate. And so Interpol refers to it as literally it's got its own word, snow wash. They're snow washing the money because Canadians we haven't been keeping up with tracking things. So now this is what this is about. I know lots of you do $10 million deals with shady Russian oil magnates. If you do that in future, there's a few more steps and papers you have to fill out.
I was going to ask you, how do we get access to these people? I want to know them.
Yeah, exactly. Go to Mar-a-Lago. All right. Okay, so section 3.1.2.6, third-party records. As of June 17, 2017, where an agent could not determine if there was a third party, but there were reasonable grounds to suspect the client is acting on behalf of a third party, the realtor is required to keep a record whether, according to the individual is acting on behalf of a third party, and B, describes the reasonable grounds to suspect the individual is acting on behalf of a third party. Then the realtors must also complete the new section B1 of your client information sheet.
Wouldn't this be more
Nope, it's you.
Third party in,
Yeah.
because once the money starts moving, we have nothing to do with that.
So you're showing a house to John Smith, and John Smith says, I'm not really buying this place for myself. My name's going to be on the page. I'm really buying it for my terrorist international crime brother-in-law. I'm just letting you know. That's what I'm really doing here. Well, I have to fill that down on section. Yeah, I now have to make a note of this on my form. So it could come up. You never know. You could, while you're showing the house to somebody, they could pick up the phone and call somebody. The words Osama bin Laden could be mentioned during that phone call. Your ears could prick up. You'd be a little, that's interesting. I wonder why they're buying a house.
Grab that manual. Check the name.
Yes. Yeah, and then you have to fill that information in. You have to make a note, and you have to write down why you think and what your suspicions were. And then when you hand the deal paperwork in, you then have to alert the brokerage of this, and then the brokerage has to submit a form to Fintrack. Who knew it was so easy to fight international money laundering and terrorism? It just takes some new forms. So we've updated the sections, 3.1.2.6. Ho-ho, 3.1.2.7. Obligation to identify unrepresented parties has changed. An agent only needs to take reasonable measures to identify an unrepresented party. So you may not know this, but for instance, if a terrorist is selling his own house in Canada, not using an agent, they're totally free to do so. It's their house. They're not using an agent. But if you bring in somebody to buy that house and you're thinking, you're looking in the wall and it's all ISIS flags and you're like, a little funny. This is your responsibility. This is the beginning and end of your responsibility. You have to say, can I see your driver's license, please? I need to verify who you are. And they can say, no. Okay, but then you have to make a note that you asked to see their driver's license and they said no. That's it. That's all you have to do. So if the unrepresented party is physically present, the agent may simply ask for ID, and if the unrepresented party refuses to provide it, document they were asked and given a date and refused. You must now also complete section A.4 in the individual identification information record and A.3 in the corporate entity identification information record. So you just have to make a note. That's all.
Do you have to memorize these numbers?
Stats of how many of these forms actually get submitted?
It is a mystery to me how this is helping. But I think someone went, because FATFA, which is our international obligation to fight organized crime and terrorism and try to fight, I think they just went through and went, what do we do? Okay, just ask them for the ID. Done. Like it's got to be, someone's ticking a box somewhere. This is the most crazy thing I've ever seen, but there we go. It is a humongous make-work project. You have no idea. This is the tip of the iceberg. The brokerage, it's insane. So that's the big deal. If you are doing a deal with a FSBO, ask them for their ID. If they don't give it to you, make a note. Okay, all realtors are now required to take Fintrack training. That's what this is. When a realtor starts with KW&R, they will also be required to complete a course of training. All existing realtors who have not undergone Fintrack training will also have to attend a Fintrack training session. Way to go, everyone here. Provided by the broker of record or the compliance office, or designated Fintrack trainer. More resources are available at the following link, and email the compliance officer for PDF versions. That's it. That's it. Any questions? I'm sorry, would you like me to drag it? I can read some more. Hang on, wait, let's go through the forms. Let's go through the forms.
In the past, like I was telling you, doing a deal with friends that I've known my whole life.
Yep.
I put that on the form. Is that acceptable?
No.
And that's better records than people get phony driver's license and everything. But I've known this guy my whole life.
It is. It's so much better. But let's say, David, you get hit by a car tomorrow, and then they audit your file. And then in the file it says, David knew this guy his whole life. David's life is over, but we're still on the getting it in the neck because your file's not complete. Yes, yes, but paperwork lives forever. Yeah, so methods to identify individuals and confirming the existence of entities. Does everyone get a copy of this? Risk-based approach workbook. So this is important for you to analyze your clientele and whether or not you are working with people who are high risk, medium risk, or low risk. And so please have a look at those handy manuals.
Does the lawyer do the same thing?
The lawyers have their own deal.
Oh, there's different?
Yeah, they have their own deal. So this is what they've specifically tailored for the real estate sector. But for instance, one of the big changes that has occurred, and I'll tell you now, if you do 3 transactions with the same person within 5 years, you have established what Fintrack refers to as a special business relationship with that person. So we have to track every transaction with a date and a person's name, and if 3 occur within those years, you have to fill out more forms. You will also have to fill out forms retroactively for the previous 2 transactions you weren't required to fill out those forms for because you'd only done 2 transactions. They changed this from 2 transactions to 3 transactions in April, and that was lobbying from CREA. It took them 2 years to get that change made. So Fintrack is on a tear. Now, if you don't think it's real, they audited Glenn McQueenie's office. Glenn McQueenie almost quit the business. It was so bad. They've gone through Vancouver like a hot knife through butter and closed offices left, right, and center. So this is really, they're going to come eventually. They're really, this is the future. And they're putting the onus on us. It's crazy, and these forms are ludicrous, but at the moment, it's the requirement from the federal government. So the federal government is asking for things that we're not supposed to do and we don't normally do. And so there's going to be some clarification coming down the pipe because these new changes came in on April, and they announced them in April, taking effect on June 30th. So in the meantime, just doing your due diligence.
So Adam, so if you do a buy and sell and a buy.
Yep, that's 3 transactions.
So what special forms do you fill out?
The brokerage will alert you when you do the 3rd transaction, and we'll send you it's after the fact. It's basically a 4th page, and then you also have to detail the nature of your business relationship with that person.
So right now, if we're just doing normal transactions, we're not doing multiples,
Mm-hmm.
there is no additional form that we need to fill out.
If they've got a driver's license,
But isn't that
and you've met them in
exactly
person.
what we've been doing?
Yeah.
We've been doing that all along. So
Yeah.
that's not an additional form.
No.
So there's nothing additional right now if they're not a suspected terrorist.
Correct.
So if we just keep going as we're going,
Mm-hmm.
and we're hearing, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I will let all my terrorists go to remand.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's a crazy and evolving thing, and so it's going to get tougher. It should, absolutely it should. Are they targeting us? Not really, this is not really, I mean, we're in the resale residential business, we're small fish. The money laundering guys aren't buying, $500,000, fixer-uppers. They're buying $10 million properties and up. They want the smallest number of transactions possible is mostly what they're looking for. And those are the big fish, and those are the easiest ones for Fintrack to track. If you are routinely doing deals with foreign nationals you've never met in multiples of 5 million or more, it's huge red flags, and they're coming for you. All right, I know, I wish. Wouldn't that be great? Okay, so the information is being updated, and our compliance information is always here. The forms, if you do a 3rd transaction, you will need to complete those extra forms. Those forms are located in the binder. The binder is in Natasha's office. Yeah, so for instance, everyone who is here today needs to send me an email, and I'm going to keep a list. You were here. Yeah. So because everyone has to do at least 1 session of Fintrack training. at least one, and so this is it.
One a year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.